how UFC's handled it and how Bellator's handled it. Bellator just went and postponed everything. What have you? Oh, you just like tuned out there for a second. What's Brave's approach?
Brave was actually one of the first promotions to not just cancel or postpone one event, but they postponed all their future events until pretty much this whole pandemic is over worldwide, because they are a global promotion. My fight was supposed to be in Brazil, then I believe they had another fight planned in Romania and in Sweden. So it's all over the world. And literally they were trying to, talk to every single country and trying to figure out what was next. I know the next event was mine, which again, I was down here 3 months training and sadly had to be postponed. UFC Brasilia was happening, and that technically wasn't even allowed, but the fighters and all the crew were already there. So Brazil was just like, you know what? You guys can still run the event, just make it closed doors. You guys are already here. We're not going to just send you back home. Might as well do, what you came here to do. So, that was technically the last big event that happened. But after that, I believe the next day, Brave was like, you know what? We're just not even going to test it. We don't want you guys to get super excited for this fight. And the day before, we have to cancel it on you. So they ended up postponing our event. And then they go, you know what? Let's just play this as safe as possible. Let's communicate with all the government bodies and go, we're just gonna wait. We don't want to give anyone high hopes. Like right now, honestly, the UFC is kind of doing that. We're like, Fight Island, we're gonna have fights every single week, and Mortal Kombat and this and that. And that's cool. Again, there's nothing bad about Fight Island. I think it's an awesome idea. I think it's a really, really cool concept. Just right now, no one should be going anywhere. Like hell, me, I want to go back home to Chicago and to come back to training. That honestly might be the dumbest thing to do. Then I have to go home. I have to go through an airport. I have to go through 2 airports, possibly 3 if I have a layover. I'm exposed to many things, many people, many different surroundings. And then by the time I get to Chicago, it's a whole different population that possibly has COVID-19, a much bigger population than Florida. So it's a crazy thing right now what the world's going through. But I think right now everyone should be staying home and happy that everyone is, or at least everyone that is healthy and alive and doing their thing.
Yeah, it's good. It's good that you have that sort of outlook. I find a lot of MMA fighters tend to be like, yeah, I'm down to fight anywhere. So it's good that you have that, rational thinking. Like, yeah, even though I'm healthy, even though I've trained, I'm fit, I'm putting other people at risk. So it's good to see that sort of perspective as well.
Oh, I'm not even gonna lie to you. If they called me to fight tomorrow, I would love it. Me, I haven't fought 1 year, but there's also that selfish perspective of I haven't fought 1 year. I would love money. My career doesn't advance in any aspect until I fight, win or lose. I need to get inside the cage. And I'm itching to get back in there. But my grandmother's 92. If I decide to go home after this fight, she's the one put at risk. My mother's, I believe, in her mid 50s. That's another person at risk. I lost my father last year. I'm not going to have this, try to happen again. There's actually a girl down here, which made it a little more realistic. There's a girl down here who trains. Her father just passed away because of COVID-19. So it's like, oh man, this ain't no conspiracy theory. This stuff is real. And it's happening to real people all over the world.
Yeah, absolutely. What's it like? I mean, obviously, the last interview I heard from you was shortly after your release from the UFC a year and a half ago. You signed a 4-fight deal. You've had 1 fight, and obviously, like you mentioned, you had the unfortunate loss in your family. So first off, sorry to hear that. But now this, so it just seems like, there's your first fight with Amir got postponed. You were supposed to fight in the Philippines, then you fought in Jordan, and then now 2 fights have been canceled. Like you said, you're itching to get back in there. Do you have an idea of when that's going to be? And if so, do you think have you heard, obviously you're part of the flyweight tournament. Is it still going to be Nicolau, or is there another name that's been coming up?
I talked to one of the guys today, and I actually, after this interview, we'll be doing a whole live thing with Carlos Kramer, the ring announcer for Brave, and talking about that. But it's one of those things that we just don't know. I would love it to be a flyweight tournament. From what I know, I talked to some of the guys yesterday. They said, yes, that's something we still want to do. It might be sped up a little bit if you guys are all down for it. We might have 2 fights a day, just like the PFL, just change the rules a little bit so it can be a little healthier. Maybe, 2 rounds. Maybe the rounds are less time for 3 rounds. You just never know. So we're trying to figure it out. We want to make it as exciting as possible. And I know Brave definitely wants to crown their flyweight champion. sooner rather than later. So then eventually they can make super fights. Maybe, let's say if I did win the belt, me versus Stephen Loman, the bantamweight champion, which that guy is the longest reigning champ for Brave, which is awesome.
You were
So
mentioning
it's
his name last year too, so
Yeah, man. It was funny
yep.
because I commentated for the very first Brave event, and I was like, okay, cool. Like I don't know many of these fighters, blah blah. And then I saw his fight against Franz Malambo, and I know Franz. I've trained with him. I know how hard he hits. And Steven was getting beat up. I was like, man, this. Oh, all right. And I don't know. Second or third round, he comes back and dominates the fight, and you're like, damn, I like this kid. And out of nowhere, he does a rematch and fights a bunch more guys. And you're like, he gets beat up every first round and then somehow prevails, comes through adversity. I was like, this is the fighter I want to fight. This is just an exciting type of fight because I'm the same exact way. If I'm able to push through after the first round, again, I've only lost one as an amateur, one as a pro. If I can push through in the first round, I will in the second, third, fourth, fifth, if it's a championship style fight. The longer it goes, the worse it is for my opponents because I'm the conditioning guy. Same Stephen Loman. So I'm like, that would be just a fan entertaining fight. But I don't know what Brave's going to do when it comes to the flyweight tournament. They're really just trying to focus on the health of pretty much all of their athletes and everyone around the world and going, hey, we're trying to spread a positive message. And I'm just one of those people on board as well. And they're just talking to the the governing bodies of going, can we have an event? Is it healthy? Is it safe? Instead of going, kind of honestly, I'm not trying to bash the UFC, but it does look bad. We're like, Dana's the only person in the world trying to run an event. He goes, okay, where are we going to do this? What Indian ground or Native American ground are we going to do this at? What state is going to allow this? Oh, we're going to buy an island and do this. Like, dude, relax. As much as us fans would love to see the fights again, what Tony Khabib is like 5 years in the making. I would love to see the fight, but there's so many health factors at risk. I think was it Wonderboy Thompson? He ended up putting a quote out there saying, he goes, dude, there's a bunch of old people where I live. I'm not going to put their health at risk. Yeah, I might be perfectly fine, but I might not know I catch something and give it to them. And then, there goes a domino effect.
Yeah, absolutely. What's it like? I mean, you were supposed to fight in Jordan, or you did fight in Jordan. You were supposed to fight in the Philippines. What's the fan base like there? Obviously, I'm from Canada, so I know the Canadian fan base is very passionate. We've got guys like GSP, TJ Grant, super passionate about them. And then you got Brazilian fans, and the US fans seem to be like, they're fans, but they're not as passionate about local fighters. How did you find Jordan?
They're definitely not as passionate to local fighters, the Americans, which really, really sucks. Again, you see fighters, for example, Lomachenko, Manny Pacquiao, I can't remember, Ricky Hatton, all these people that are from different countries, their whole country follows them to all these events. If not, the whole country shuts down. It's actually given fact that when Manny Pacquiao fights, there's literally zero crime in the Philippines when that fight is happening. Before or after, I don't know. But that fight during those 36 minutes, it's ridiculous. So that's how crazy it is. But when I went to Jordan, I was a little skeptical, excuse me. I was a little skeptical because I was like, man, I'm honestly in the Middle East. I'm an American. Sometimes, again, the way media portrays people, especially in the States here, everyone in the States here, again, with Donald Trump, everyone's like, oh, Muslims, boo, Muslims, this, that. It's like, Muslims aren't the problem. It's certain people that just so happen to be Muslim that are the problem. But you have people like Trump and all these people, again, whatever the case may be. So I was a little nervous out there. And when I walked out, I was like, you know what? Just to play it safe, I'm not going to walk out with my American flag. I just don't want to do it. Plus, I was literally the only American on the card. So I was like, I'm gonna play it safe. Plus, I was fighting, a guy who was born in Iraq. He was an Iraqi refugee, moved to, London and UK. So it was just like, I'm gonna play as safe as possible. So when I walked out, honestly, I did hear a couple boos, but my Iraqi opponent walked out first. Amir Abbasi is a great fighter, 11-0, big prospect. Yeah, you want your Middle Eastern guy to really come up, especially because Middle Easterns aren't really known for being MMA fighters, not exactly yet. And I think that's what Brave is doing really, really well, showcasing them. But they want to, who doesn't want to beat the American? So when I walked out, everyone was like, boo. It was like, damn, that's the first time I ever walked out and got booed. All right. And then I got there, I fought. If people were enjoying the fight, that after immediately I was trying to be respectful and fit to the culture. Like, assalamu alaikum. What's up, guys? I really appreciate the love and support, man. It really does mean a lot. And everyone's like, yeah, like, he's cool. He's one of us. He's not just a douchebag American, if you want to say stereotypically Kobe Covington and stuff like that, So I was like, they ended up being really, really cool. And actually, some of the guys there took me out to Petra, which is one of the natural wonders of the world. And it was definitely a fun experience. I want to do it again. I really was heartbroken when I had to pull out for the Philippines fight. I really wanted to fight in the Philippines. Manny Pacquiao's my favorite fighter, so I was like, I want to go. Maybe Manny Pacquiao's going to be there. You just never know. So, maybe one day, hopefully. But maybe against Stephen Loman, that would be even better. But it's time will tell, and I'm excited to just fight anywhere. I know when I fight in Bahrain in the Middle East, which I've just gone many times, that country loves me. It's another home for me. So I'm like, this right here is really, really awesome.
How have you because you've been doing some commentating. How have you found that? Was it a natural transition for you? Obviously, you're well spoken. I know like a lot of fighters tend to transition into it. How was the transition? Do you enjoy it?
I liked it a lot. It was definitely a little different. It's not the same as just randomly talking to your girlfriend, significant other, or your parents at home while watching a fight. You can't just be like, oh man, you have to kind of like really explain it and dwindle things down sometimes, because most of the fans are average fans. They don't know much about the sport. They just love to see blood, gore, chokes, all that stuff. So when I'm talking, I'm honestly just talking about what I see. I just have to break it down a little more. I think the hardest part is not getting too excited, and then also not being too quiet to where I'm messing up the two or other person next to me. Because we all have to be in sync and have a good time. Even if you don't like the person, you have to have a good time, fake it till you make it type of thing. And you honestly have to be a little more over exaggerated sometimes. Again, you see like the UFC when people get knocked out, they're like, oh, so you do have to have fun a little bit, but it is, for me, I believe a natural transition. It's a lot of fun. I want to do more. I'm disappointed I haven't been able to do more, but one day maybe. You never know.
It's got to be difficult to stay unbiased, like especially if there's someone on the card or someone's fighting and you're like, I don't like him very much. It's got to be difficult to keep that unbiased to yourself. Like Dominic Cruz, for example, he commentated Uriah Faber's fight. I can imagine wanting to just be like, no, he's losing. But
yeah, you want to piece them apart, and it's honestly for me, it's not that I don't like certain people. Usually, I just whatever. I'll keep it as neutral as possible with that. But it's hard to not be overexcited about a fighter that you like. A friend going in there, because honestly, I'm friends with a lot of people. So when I see people even fight each other, I'm like, oh man, I don't even want to like watch this fight because it's just two really, really good guys. But sometimes you have to be as neutral as possible. That's the hardest part. Or even tell the other commentator next to me, like, hey, I'm not gonna lie to you, this is my friend. So I might be a little overexcited about this. So I want you to be the devil's advocate and root for the other guy or something like that, so we can break it even and it seems fair on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. I know UFC is kind of in your past. It's a year and a half or so removed from your release. What are your thoughts now on the way the divisions kind of played out? Obviously, they released a bunch of people. They kind of looked like the division was going to disappear, and then now it looks like it's back up again. I think, one of the main reasons for your release was perhaps the dwindling of the flyweight division. It's got to almost be a little bit bittersweet to see it kind of, rise again. What are your thoughts on the division?
I don't really want to say it's rising again, because it's been at the same spot. It's been like at a limbo since I left. Really, it was more of like, we're going to cut people once they lose or the contract's over. I was one of the first because I lost. Jared Brooks was next, Justice Scoggins, and it just started going down. And they only kept a handful of people. Why? It wasn't because all of them are good, because there were still people that obviously lost. I mean, look at Dustin Ortiz. He lost against Joseph Benavidez, and he was cut. That guy was a veteran in the UFC in general, and a veteran and a pioneer in the flyweight division. But then you have, guys like who beat me? Alex Perez. Alex Perez lost against Joseph Benavidez' next fight, but then he gets called back, and it's like, okay, Louis Smolka got to lose 4 in a row, and then still got to come back after he was released. He got to come back like 3 months later or something like that at the bantamweight division. Some fighters like myself were not allowed to bump up, even though half my wins at the time were at the bantamweight division. So it's like, this isn't really being fair. It's very political and very like, hey, I'm your friend, I'm going to help you out, but dude, I don't even like you, you're out, or I don't really have a conversation with you, so you're out. So it does suck, but when it comes to the UFC and what I believe is next with the division, I really don't know. Cody Garbrandt says he's going to supposedly try to cut down. I highly doubt that because he's bigger than TJ, and TJ had a hard time cutting down. So I don't see him trying to do. He already struggles making bantamweight, so I don't see him doing that. But Cejudo definitely doesn't want to come back down. I know that for a fact. Benavidez lost. They were hoping Benavidez would win, and that didn't happen. Figueiredo, I believe has a couple more fights under his contract left, so you can't cut him because he's technically won his last fight. So this division's really at limbo. They're looking for a new champion. They're looking for the youngins. I mean, Kyle DeFrance. They hired the Russian guy that just beat Tim Elliott. Obviously, the guy would beat me, Alex Perez. And I believe there's a handful of others that they're really looking as prospects. But they said the same thing with Sergio Pettis, and he lost to Joseph Benavidez. And then, so that didn't happen as well. So I don't see anything happening anytime soon. Maybe it'll just last for a little bit, and some of those guys will be allowed to bantamweight, but I don't see anything happening progressively, at least in the future.
Yeah, it definitely is unusual. Like especially like when you look at you were 8-1, you had a win and you had a loss. Any other division, and no one gets cut. So and you think about it, your only loss is to the guy who's ranked 6th in the world.
Yeah.
So
well, see, there's also the bad thing is that technically, in all technicality, and it's not to belittle some of the fighters, which it kind of does, is the top 15 guys in the UFC are the only 15 guys in the flyweight division.
Yep.
So there was 45 of us. Now there's 15. And no offense to those guys, a lot of them have lost, but they're still somehow ranked top in the world. And I think that does belittle a bunch of the guys like myself, Adriano Moraes, a ONE FC champion, a bunch of the guys in ONE FC, other flyweights in Brave, Ryzen. So it does look bad upon us all because UFC is known as the predominant promotion. But all 15 guys are ranked. I don't believe it's fair.
Yeah, and I think I personally think the best 125er is in ONE FC. Right, yeah. Demetrius Johnson's over there, the best of all time, arguably the greatest of all time in any division, isn't even the UFC. And I think that definitely doesn't shine a positive light on the division in the UFC. Is that ultimately the goal? If for whatever reason within the next 2 years that division picks up steam, it's got 45, 50 people, is your goal to end up back in the UFC, or is that something that's like it's in the past? I want to look forward. I'm enjoying my time in Brave.
Right now it's definitely in the past. I'm definitely looking forward to what's next with Brave. I've only had one fight in 1 year, so I definitely want to make up time for that. 2, they're letting me commentate. They're really trying to build me and promote me. And 3, I'm finally being respected as the individual with a great resume that I came into, at both promotions with. I thought the way I'm being treated now was the way I thought the UFC was going to treat me, but it didn't happen whatsoever. I've never been so belittled with my resume. It's ridiculous, and it's not to put myself on a pedestal. I've worked hard for what I achieved, so I believe I deserve some type of little thing. But being signed to a very last minute fight, 9 days, 26 pounds, being forced into it, all 10 calls were last minute. No one really caring about my resume. If I was any other weight class, I would have been highlighted, no problem. But because I was a flyweight, a dying weight class, it didn't really matter. I could say bad things, which I didn't really say bad things. I was just kind of pointing the business aspect, and that's why I was released first. But then you got Colby Covington talking trash and all these people talking trash to Dana White, and they're perfectly fine. They're hired. So it's like if I was a different weight class, it would have been different. So for me, if I'm not looking at the UFC whatsoever anytime soon, nor am I ever really. But if I were to try to come back, it's like I want to see some type of change. I want to see some type of progressive movement of going, this is a weight class that we're trying to build back up and definitely 100% trying to keep instead of going, we're at limbo like right now. If they were to call me right now, I would 100% say no.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the way you were treated, you've made it pretty vocal when you were released, as well as, everyone in the division seems to be kind of in limbo unless you're Joseph Benavidez or guys who are promoted by the organization. No one's really been super, super content at 125. And I guess some non-MMA material for people like myself who are in quarantine, aren't allowed to leave the house. What sorts of recommendations do you have? Are you watching any TV shows? Is there anything out there that you're doing to keep yourself occupied?
I've actually been more tired now than I was during training. I'd rather be getting beat up than what I'm doing now. I'm actually I stay at ATT in the dorms, but I go a couple of minutes away to my manager's house, and he has 2 kids, and they're 9 and 11. Those girls tire me out. Like, it is exhausting. And I'm the guy that's like, all right, come on, cool, let's play, girls. What are we gonna do? They're like, oh, we have a trampoline, we have a pool. 2 things I've always wanted as a kid. I always had a pool, like one of those like built up ones, they floor and ground, which is just a shocker to me. But they have a trampoline, so I'm like, yeah, cool. Dude, they just don't get off me. It's like, what are you doing? 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 And I'm like right now, I literally just finished a workout, and they kept on coming in the garage because there's bags in the garage. They kept on coming in the garage, and I'm filming, making like little technique videos, and they're like, "Are you done yet?" I'm like, "I'm halfway through this. The more you bother, the less I have time to play with you, you know." So it does become exhausting. Shout out to all the parents out there. I don't believe I have any kids, but man, this is exhausting. Good job for you guys being able to do this for 18 years. But they take all their energy out of me, and it's fun though. It's definitely a nice experience. And then playing Nintendo Switch has probably been one of the biggest things. I would love to read. I'd love to practice a different language. I would love to watch movies, but honestly, I get so lazy. I'm like, I'm going to be productive after this nap. So it just never happens.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. That's kind of why I started this. I was bored. There's no UFC, no sports. So I said, you know what? I'm going to start a podcast, start building something up. I'm passionate about it, huge fan. And thank you for taking the time, man. I appreciate you making some time to speak to me.
I appreciate it, man. It was an honor. Thank you for the questions. Actually, really good questions, real good stats. I like that. You looked up yourself, so appreciate it. And yeah, man, it's we're all through a struggle, but the good thing is, I guess, the selfish aspect, but it is a positive thing, is that we are definitely 100% not alone in this. We are all losing money, losing time, losing whatever the case may be, but we're all doing this together. So, don't feel super bad for yourself. It's definitely not one of those dark clouds that's just hovering over you. It's hovering over everybody.
Yeah, perfect. Wise words. Great way to end it. Thanks, man.
No problem, man. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, you too. Wash your hands.
Yeah, bye-bye.